Batman Begins came out. It was weird because watching it in the theater, I started noticing a lot of parallels with both the Bruce Wayne character and my own life, the parallels between his story and the guilt, anger that he felt, stuff that I was struggling with throughout my early years as a Christian. I just remember at the very end thinking, and obviously it's a Batman movie, you know Batman's going to win. In my head, I'm watching the gas is filling the city, and you're kind of like, man, how is he supposed to win? I just remember coming out thinking really all it took for him to win was just the belief that he could do it. Like failure just wasn't an option. It was just like, okay, this is how it's going to go, or I'm going to die trying. And realizing as a Christian, like what you have to offer, whether it be through your gifts or through your talents, your abilities, just having a vision for things and just not giving up. You can change so much if you just dedicate yourself to it.
Well, hello and welcome to the Tinfoil Hack Club. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ben.
And thank you for joining us yet again. So we have a special guest today, and his name is Eric Gaizat. So Eric is a pretty cool dude. Ben is actually, I guess you could say childhood friends with him, right? Kind of know him?
Known him for probably about 10, 12.
Just a few years?
13.
Sad to say.
Been a long time.
Sad to say that doesn't take us back to childhood anymore when we say 10, 15, whatever years.
So I wouldn't say childhood. I'd say childhood adult years.
Yeah. Have those ended? I didn't know those ended. So anyway, we have Eric today.
For some of us more than others, I guess.
Right, that's right. We have Eric today. He's joining us, and he is actually an author and documentarian. He gets into a lot of different things, but he also has 317 Films and Games, so he's into all kinds of cool stuff, and you can see in the background there, he's got cool figurines and all kinds of fun things that we're going to get into and talk about today. But he is the author of Christianity and the Dark Knight. He has another book that he actually authored with another gentleman as well called Share Your Faith, but it's really Christianity and the Dark Knight that we're probably going to dive into the most today, because it's kind of a fascinating discussion on comparing the two and how they kind of meld together when you look at the lore of it, I would say. So thanks so much for joining us, dude. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And a chance to talk about this fun book and project that I worked on a few years ago. And so let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So I guess the very first question is, what inspired you to do that?
So back when I first became a Christian, I would say, gosh, almost 25 years ago now, I was about 20 years old, and when I came into it, they actually had my twin brother and I working with the teen ministry at the time. We were kind of very close in age, so it was easy to relate to the kids. And we did that for about a year or so, and then I went off to the campus ministry and started. I led a campus ministry at IUPUI for a few years, and then kind of once I came out, I got married, and weirdly enough, I have always had a fascination and just a desire to help like the teenagers in like our teen ministry and things like that. I always felt kind of a special kinship and just sort of relating on a level that a lot of the older folks couldn't. And so there was like one midweek I was sitting in there and I saw a teenager. This is after I got married, who fell asleep in the middle of our midweek lesson. I remember being kind of a little indignant about it. I was like, man, what, kind of looking around, and it was a lot of older people. And I'm like, man, I wish somebody would help out our teen ministry, and I started looking around. I'm like, oh, wait, it's probably me, isn't it? So,
Yep.
So I felt a calling to step in and do that. And about that time, it was when the Batman Begins came out, and that was a huge. It was weird because watching it in the theater, I started noticing a lot of parallels with both the Bruce Wayne character and my own life. Like even when it talks about, he was gone for 7 years, and at that time I was like 8 years old as a Christian, and I realized I'd been gone from the teen ministry for 7 years. And so coming back in, it was just interesting, and just a lot of the parallels between like his story and the guilt, anger that he felt, stuff that I was struggling with throughout my early years as a Christian. And I just remember at the very end thinking, and obviously it's a Batman movie, Batman's going to win at the end.
Sure.
But in my head, I'm watching, the gas is filling the city, and you're kind of like, man, how would he win this? How is he supposed to win? And there was a couple of really good moments in there, and he kind of pulls it out. It's kind of inspirational, some of the quoting and the throwbacks to earlier in the movie. And I just remember coming out thinking, like, really all it took for him to win was just the belief that he could do it. Like, it wasn't about, like, failures wasn't an option. It was just like, okay, this is how it's going to go, or I'm going to die trying. And I remember our team ministry not doing so well at the time. I remember being part of a team ministry that did well. I remember I knew that it could do well again as long as somebody had the faith and belief that you could do it, that you would go in and have an impact. And so after a few years of kind of helping out with that, I always wanted to do kind of a Batman and Christianity, sort of link the two together, just how it inspired me with how, I even had some of it's funny because the teens even called me Batman, and, I had my different like Robins, and there was one girl who I called Batgirl in my ministry. And they sort of inspired me to write this book to help other kids once I got out of the team ministry, to encourage them with, superheroes were huge at the time, especially between 2005, 2008, when it started get going, like with Iron Man and a lot of the Marvel movies, and Superman, Man of Steel kind of thing. And so when I wrote the book, I just started writing about the things that I knew could help other people to have an impact in their world, mostly for the younger people. But even if you were kind of that mid-20s age, maybe this might inspire you to want to step up and sort of make a difference in your own Gotham, like your own world. And so, the first half of the book is sort of, the first probably third of the book is really looking at like the qualities of Bruce Wayne versus a lot of the stories that I've collected over the years, and things that inspire me about Batman, and kind of looking at him, Bruce Wayne, my own life, things that have worked, things that have not worked, some of the key elements to really improving, not just sort of improving yourself, but also getting your head into the mindset of wanting to help your world, the people in your life, your coworkers, your family, your friends, people you care about. And also on the last part of the book, the last 2/3 of the book really break down the different villains of the Batman universe. Because when we think about Batman, we always think about the villains and how they, they're the most memorable of all the comic book characters. I'd say maybe Spider-Man has got some good ones too, but Batman for sure. And how each character, while we look at them in the comic books as being extreme examples of things that we run into every day, it's just these particular characters choose not to advance, in their thinking and their mentality, their spirituality, whatever. There's one thing they can't overcome to be normal like everybody else. They refuse to. And kind of how we meet people like that every day, just not to that extreme.
Yeah.
And to kind of keep warning ourselves to make sure we don't fall into a lot of these same traps too. So that was kind of the idea behind the whole book. So
it seemed like the kids responded really well to that.
They did. We actually started a teen conference. It's funny, we had just gotten a new head minister in our church, a new teen minister. They both came from Chicago. And I had this idea, talking to a lot of the teens and stuff, about we should put together this conference where we invite the other churches and our family of churches from the Midwest into it, and put on these classes about how to become a spiritual superhero. That was the first year. It was 2009, I think, when we started. And it was, we'd look at like X-Men and, your spiritual gifts that you have, or, Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility, the whole dealing with your anger, my only caveat was I got to do the Batman class. So that was kind of cool. And so we kind of talked about that, and it was pretty well attended. But we had several hundred teens come to this event.
Oh, wow.
And they, it was what I had planned initially to be kind of a one and done. They actually ended up continuing on the next several years.
Wow.
We actually just had one a few months ago, and they're they're still going. We're on our 12th year.
I was going
right
to say
now,
what
so.
I was going to ask what iteration we were in. So we're in like over a dozen years now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, obviously the
COVID
the
years.
topics change and everything, and yeah, there was a couple of years we had to take off during the COVID stuff,
Yeah.
but it was but and they've changed the topic every year,
Sure.
and I was speaking at them. I always did kind of a class for probably the first 6 or 7 years, and then I came to the realization, something that I think a lot of people who help out the teen ministry, things like that, come to, is that eventually you get to a point where the kids don't really think they can relate to you very much, like based on your age. And
yeah, you get
so
gray,
I just turned 46. Yeah, I could dye it, but I always say I could look young for my age when I shave this thing.
There you go.
But I wanted to, I'm still glad it's going, because again, they have a few hundred teens come every year. And my whole plan was doing this first teen conference, that if I could even reach just one kid, to inspire them to be the best that they could be for God, for Jesus, for their ministry, for helping people, and inspire one person to change their life, like the whole thing was worth it.
Yeah.
And so just being able to do that every year and see the kids who were, initially in the first few classes sitting and watching these things, now are old enough where they're leading their teen ministries and they're coming and speaking and trying to change kids' lives, is just awesome. It's something that's blown me away over the past decade, just seeing all the growth and that really, honestly, it's just me sitting in a theater one night and being like, wow, this like, you just have to believe that things can change and just stick to it no matter what. Well, just have the faith that nobody else can have.
Seeing the parallels in your own life and how it relates. So it's probably going to relate to especially these other kids and stuff. Yeah. It sounds like the main underpinning for all this, if I had to pinpoint it, and I want you to tell me if I'm off here, is actually on spiritual gifts. Is that kind of the main driver underneath everything? Trying to find their spiritual gifts?
Some of it is their spiritual gifts, but really, honestly, the biggest thing is just perseverance, I think, more than anything. Okay. Like, spiritual gifts are definitely part of it, like realizing what you're good at and what you're not good at. I had a roommate that I co-led my IPOI ministry with, and he and I fought just all the time because we were just completely different people. But one thing that he and I both realized was that we had the same mission. We had the same Lord, the same, drive to want to help people. It's just that we realized that based on his personality, he was going to be good at helping certain people. I was going to be good at helping other people. So when we go out reaching out to people or start studying the Bible with people, getting to know people, I might meet someone that I can't really connect to, someone who's not into comic books, not into superheroes, not into going to movies or gaming, staying up all night gaming, that kind of thing. Maybe they're into sports and the things that I couldn't get into in high school because I was too small to play these things. That's why I got into the laser tag industry. And but he could, my roommate could, and he would connect with those people and form the relationships. And we learned to sort of play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses, whether it was learning from each other how to speak in public, how to preach, how to, like I said, how to share our faith, how to incorporate other people in, and how to read people's personalities and be able to know, okay, well, I may not have as big impact on this person as he could. So when he and I both kind of learned to play off of each other, that's when things started really getting strong with us. And we still tease each other to this day about just silly things all the time, just because we know that we used to have that kind of those arguments all the time. But really having that same mission mindset, I would say, of just helping people just revolutionized the way that we impacted our ministry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Would you say that like your main point of interest in the church is actually the youth ministry, or is there another aspect of kind of the Bible and Christianity that's kind of a draw point for you?
I will always have a passion for the teen ministry, just at least an interest in how it's doing and making sure that it's doing well. If things aren't going well, or people are they seem to be struggling, or and most of the times getting to know the parents and kind of seeing how they're doing with the kids. That's where I can kind of gauge things nowadays. I always try to remind parents, hey, look, people usually come to God because of one of two reasons. One, because they know it's the right thing to do or something bad happens. And I'm like, which was it for you? And most of them, it wasn't. They just knew it was the right thing to do. And so I have to kind of remind them, like, your kids may be the same way. Like they may need a wake up moment to really understand, like, where they are before God, And it's just kind of I'm sure you guys have seen in church mindsets where kids grow up in the church and they kind of take, the spiritual lessons that you've learned for granted.
Oh,
and
yeah.
because they grow up with it,
Yeah.
so they aren't as sharp on, like, sometimes you got to take them on field trips. You got to take them to go see how the rest of the world lives, so that way they can start to appreciate what they have. And usually the older they get, the more that impacts them. And so reassuring parents who have teens that are not growing as spiritually in the direction that they would want, just helping to remind them of those types of things. So the interest in the teen ministry has always been a huge part of my life. And I think it probably always will be. But so, yeah, I'd probably say that's my main focus. But on the other hand, too, my wife and I we're getting ready to adopt a boy. He's 10 years old right now.
Yeah.
And he's into a lot of the same. He appreciates a lot of the same stuff, even though he knows he can't touch any of my toys back here. He does doesn't stop him from looking.
Dude, that's like torture. It's like putting a fat kid in a cookie factory, man. Like, that's rough.
My brother's the same way. He's got 3 kids. He's got an impressive collection of stuff too. And what's funny is the kids growing up, they just know that those are dad's toys. You don't get to play with those. So
you better get a lock on that door.
yeah.
So that's like that is the temptation for a kid, man. That's a playland in there. So
who's your favorite villain in the book?
Ooh.
I would say 2. Now my favorite Batman villain is Two-Face. I actually have a Two-Face coin collection. I even did some videos on YouTube where I review different Two-Face coins that people have come out with over the years, and I've probably got 30 some different coins. So he's always been my favorite. I love Two-Face. There's another character though that I write about in the book that isn't as well known. Some people know him, but he only really appeared for almost 30 years in one comic book, and his name was The Wrath, and he was the evil version of Batman. I mean, he was like his character on the same day Bruce Wayne's parents were killed. His parents were killed, weirdly enough, by a rookie Commissioner Gordon, but his parents were criminals. They were thieves, and so when they died, he grew up wanting to kill law enforcement. So he he went around becoming an assassin kind of thing and training very much like how Bruce Wayne did. But when he comes to Gotham to sort of get his last revenge on Commissioner Gordon, he sees that he has Batman backing him up. So he sort of takes on a persona that looks like Batman to sort of, at first, to kind of mock Commissioner Gordon's trust in the Batman, but then he sort of develops it into his own thing. And it was cool because he in one issue he like finds out Bruce Wayne's secret identity. He like puts Alfred in the hospital, destroys Bruce Wayne's parents' gravestones, almost kills Commissioner Gordon like twice, kidnaps this lady named Leslie Tompkins, who was Bruce Wayne's kind of one of his therapists growing up when he was a kid after he lost his parents. Like all this stuff happened in one issue, and and at the end he dies at the end.
Yeah.
And then they sort of bring back his version of Robin, who becomes the new Wrath later, like years later. But he was always, that particular issue always I thought was really cool. So
explain to everybody how you use that in your book, The Wrath.
The Wrath, it has to deal more with dealing with like anger issues, and just how people who allow anger to sort of control them. And really, honestly, today it would be a really good topic today, honestly, with people who just get completely obsessed with their anger over, I mean, it could be anything, but, especially with like the political tensions in the world, like what just happened recently with Trump getting almost assassinated.
20-year-old young guy.
Some guy getting, broken mentally into just anger and fear. And that's kind of that's sort of what that particular chapter hits on is, like, so we meet people who just can't see hope.
Yeah.
And so they get attracted to that. So, yeah, again, as people we meet like that every day, or we see online, we see. I mean, how many times have, people unfriended people on Facebook because of a post,
Yep.
or you're driving, end up in a altercation because someone cut you off, or it seems like these things are happening more and more and more frequently. It's like people giving into that anger and hopelessness. So.
We'll get you back to the show in just a second, but I wanted to share with you how you can help support The Foil. First, head on over to our website, thetfhc.com, and click on the Support The Foil button. This is actually going to take you to the page that will tell you the 4 ways that you can help support The Foil. The first way that you can support The Foil is becoming a member of the show. There are 2 different membership levels, starting at just $5 a month. Number 2 is you can just give directly to The Foil via the Cash App. Scan the QR code on your phone with your camera, and you can give directly to the show. 3, head on over to the merch store and buy some merch. And 4, anytime you want to buy one of our guest books, head over to the guest page, thetfhc.com/guests, and purchase the books through our website. A portion of the proceeds actually comes back to support the show. Thanks so much. Back to the show. Yeah. You were explaining the character of the Wrath, and I was just sitting there listening from a biblical perspective, and I'm like, it is like a carbon copy between Batman and the Wrath of Christ and Satan, or God and Satan.
Yeah.
Satan is
actually, what's funny is that
complete counterfeit version of the good.
That comic book is actually entitled "The Player on the Other Side."
Do you think that's happenstance, or do you think that that's on purpose?
Oh,
the parallels like here. Do you think that they unwittingly do that, or do you think that's on purpose?
Well, I think for the comic book stories, I think obviously it's on purpose because you got to go through a lot of editing to get through that. But when it comes to like the spiritual applications, I don't know. I could see it kind of going either way. I'm sure a lot of people who created these characters had some moral standings to want to do these things. But I'm not prideful enough to think that I could, that I'm the first one to draw these parallels, right. or extrapolate a little too deep.
Well, they're not the first ones to come up with them, so that's okay. Nobody's the first in this room here and on anything, right? Like Solomon said, the sun goes down, sun rises, the sun goes down, and hurries back to come back to where it rose again. That's right. And nothing new under the sun, right? It's just funny because sitting here listening. There was a post that I saw earlier today before we went to church, and it's kind of fits what we're talking about here, because as you mature in your faith, at least for me, and I bet anything when I say this, I bet I know what you're gonna think, Ben. We'll see what you think. But it was one of my family members. They had posted the dance scene from the movie Michael. Have you ever seen the movie Michael? Either of you?
Yeah.
You're talking about the one with John Travolta?
Yes, and he plays the Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
And the whole shtick in the movie is that he attracts women to him. Mm-hmm. And he's in this bar, and he's dancing to the song on the jukebox, and the women are literally walking away from their guys and going to him. And I think it winds up they wind up getting into a fight in the bar, right? And so nowadays, I looked at that, and I'm like, it screams Genesis 6 to you. To me, anyway. That's what it was just. It was just staring me in the face. And it's like, I
never really thought about that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see it now? Yeah. And I just thought, and I didn't say anything because I was like, they hear enough of that from me. So it's like, whatever, let them have their fun moment where they got Michael dancing, Travolta doing his little thing, his shtick. But I just wonder sometimes with these movies, and like we've talked about the superhero thing before, Ben, you and I, and how much of these things they either unknowingly draw from, or they know and they're doing it. I just wonder. So I know that's kind of a statement, but if anybody wants to jump in, feel free, because it's just kind of an interesting thing. Because when I watched that, it just threw a completely different set of lenses this morning.
It's possible. I mean, I feel, it's one of those things that when I wrote the book, I think it was definitely a great time to have written it because, like I said, a lot of superhero stuff was kind of just starting.
Yeah, you hit when it was hot.
So it wasn't. I think a lot of people could have seen it from that particular point of view. Nowadays, though, because the comic books and the comic movies have been kind of garbage.
Here.
because they've, the comic books have become overtly political, overtly sinful, to be brutally honest, overtly Taking characters that, were good inspirations, and now they're homosexual themed, they're bisexual, they're trans, they're all these things. They're just so self-centered, focused that they don't. There isn't the focus, but they have intentionally done these things.
Yeah.
And
the line between good and evil is completely blurred now.
Yeah, that was their intent.
Yeah.
And the people talked about neo-Marxist views and how part of their deconstruction of culture is they have to take the legends, the heroes of a particular culture, and they have to subvert them. They have to destroy them in the minds of the public, so that you don't have heroes to look up to, because you can't. Like, being a hero and being different is completely antithetical to the thinking of a lot of these political ideologies. So socialists don't thrive with heroes in their midst. So it's kind of one of those things that you have to, like I said, when I started all this, the idea was to inspire, whether it be a kid or teenager or college student, to mentally prepare themselves for what was coming, and to realize that a lot of to go into a lot of these situations in facing on their college campuses, whether try to share their faith, things that I used to go street preaching when I was in campus, and it's funny that whenever I'd interject my own stories, people were fine, but if I just read like the Sermon on the Mount, all I had to do was just stand in front of people and just read the Sermon on the Mount. The amount of vitriol that would come my way was just insane.
Yeah.
People shaking newspapers in my face, or challenge me on certain things, and I'm like, you're not even arguing with me. You're just taking up with the author.
Right, exactly. Why do you think that is?
I'm just reading.
They're perfectly fine to listen to your story, but then you do that, and it's just like open rejection, man. Why do you think that is? Why do people psychologically do that?
I think people think the Bible is inherently, I would say offensive, because the Bible is inherently offensive. Like, it's you're not going to change the world if it's not offensive to some degree against the sinful nature.
Right.
But I think some people have it in their heads that because it's from the Bible, if they accept that, they're going to lose something.
Their freedom,
friends, family, freedom. Their fun. I don't know. Like, just people get it in their heads that well, if it's from the Bible, then the Bible's just written by men, and it's flawed, and you just like people are flawed, and it's definitely challenging. But I just don't think a lot of people have stopped, because one guy used to ask me, he's like, well, outside the Bible, how can you prove to me the Bible's real? And I'm like, well, have you ever read the Bible? Well, no. Okay. I've read it 8 times now, so it's definitely doable.
How can you prove to me your mom's real right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's like trying to read all the Hindu scriptures. Like, oh, how do you know this is right? It's like, well,
right.
Reincarnation would have to be real, because you'd have to stay alive to read all these books. But it's one of those things that trying to convince people with personal anecdotes. I think people are a little more open to seeing how things have affected your life, and your particular, maybe your opinions on how things are. But as soon as you interject God's will into it, for a lot of the people, I think it just crosses a line in their brains that are agnostic or atheistic or just rebellious in general, and it's sort of something triggers. But I have gotten to have a few really decent Bible studies or conversations with people in various places of life. I talked to a guy who worked in the mayor's office, and I've talked to professors. I've talked to other students, and and just people every day, their lives, and just have an impact on people. And it's not one of those things that's like, oh, well, they became Christians that day. Like, I don't know. Like, most of these people probably maybe haven't, but if I can put a rock in their shoe and make them think about it when they walk away, then maybe later on down the road, something I said may have an impact on them.
Yeah. So since they've started to do this, and you may or may not know this, I don't know, in the comic books, have they seen a decline in sales?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, DC and Marvel are only still around because they're owned by bigger corporations. If Disney did not own Marvel, they would have folded long ago. Same thing with DC and Warner Brothers. They just can't. It's just the writers cannot write compelling stories, because they sort of, you get hired because you wrote that you hated Trump on a tweet, and now you're qualified to write for Marvel, and and that's why they hire you, and
Yeah.
because all you do is check diversity
Yeah,
points,
that's right. You're
and
dead on, man.
then they don't. They it's weird because they didn't create these characters. They don't care if they destroy them.
Yeah, right.
And so they take a character, let's say like Tim Drake, Batman's third Robin, and they make him gay because the person who wrote him was gay and he wanted to inject himself into the comic book. And so, or this character is now non-binary or trans, or and they tell you, especially in the sense of Disney, like they're going to put something, with a queer focus in everything they do. So they came out and said that, and so now when it's happening, it's happening, and kind of take them at their word. Obviously, they meant what they said, but when ticket sales and things and comic book sales go down, they do the things like where they argue with the readers online, and instead of saying, hey, maybe I don't know how to write these characters, they say, well, these are the new versions of the characters. You just need to get with the program. It's like, these characters have been around for 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, why would you change that all of a sudden? And from what people like, and it's just about subversion and
programming.
Like I said, they don't care that they destroy the characters, and when people walk away, they just assume that it's everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
So,
we actually have an episode coming out, not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. So by the time everybody sees this, it'll already be out. It's an interview with a gentleman by the name of George Maurer, and he wrote a book about critical race theory. He's former military and has done several other things, broadcasting in the military. But it was a really good conversation because it went well beyond CRT. It's actually, we got into indoctrination. And it's just incredible because I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting back. I just got done editing that episode, so it's fresh in my mind.
Not mine. It's been a while.
No, right? Yeah, Ben doesn't get the joys of that. But ultimately, the things we got into with George, one of the things he actually says, and kind of the trailer for the show is, it's never just one thing that they do. It's always a multi-prong approach to infiltrate and subvert and program. Right. We look at the news, and I think everybody with two brain cells to bang together that has any rational thought goes, yeah, it's all propaganda now. There's no unbiased media left, right, practically. And they're all owned by the same company when you really trail it up far enough anyway. But it's just amazing to me because this is an avenue that I never really thought of. I mean, we know about the movies, right? We already know kind of the Disney thing and the darkness that's there, and it's probably been there for a long time. That we just weren't aware of, but now it's just like so open and honest about it. They don't even bother to hide it. But I never would think about the comic book side.
Yeah, me neither.
And it's just like how they have literally like put their Satan tentacles into everything that these kids touch.
Mm-hmm. And comic book sales started going down at around 2015. It's when all I would say like the woke agenda got into comic books. 2014, 2015 is when it really started taking root. And comic book sales just tanked. And one way you can kind of notice it, like if you've ever seen the Captain Marvel movie, the first one, Captain Marvel, they were trying to make Captain Marvel the flagship character for Marvel.
Yeah.
Instead of Spider-Man, which everybody knows is Spider-Man. And they were trying to make Captain Marvel the main focus of everything in Marvel. So if you see anything with Marvel attached to it nowadays, you will always see Captain Marvel in on the lunch boxes, on the Avengers stuff, on the arcade one-up cabinets, on the, whatever they do. Captain Marvel is always there because they've always been trying to push her as this kind of character. But her comic book has failed so many times that they've rebooted it like 7 or 8 times in the past 6 years. Wow. Because nobody is buying it. But the problem is they started putting all these elements, like I said, making characters gay, like half of the X-Men are gay, or half the, like all these things are going on where these characters just don't mean anything anymore. So people quit collecting, and the comic book started failing. But at the same time, you have the movies that are going on, like building up to the end game, where they're breaking record sales, and it's $2 billion a movie, and they're making all this record profits. And what happened was, as soon as they got out with Endgame, I told my friends, I said, I had heard kind of from different people who were reporting on it that they were starting to go down the roads that the comic books were going down. I'm like, well, if they go down the road the comic books, they're going to start losing. Yep. Yeah, it's good. It's going to be gone very, very quickly. And sure enough, right after Endgame, we start seeing all the politics getting into things, and 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 their sales have tanked, and so now, and again, they're blaming the fans, and it's exactly what they did with the comic books, and it was already done several years in advance, and they just didn't. That for some reason they thought that was going to be a winning strategy.
It's your fault you're not buying our stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am
That's a
excited
great
for
strategy.
the new Deadpool movie coming out. I want to see that.
We're itching to go see the new Deadpool movie, and it's kind of funny because you look at like Inside Out 2 that just recently came out. It was very free of politics, and it did well. It made over $1 billion, I think.
Really?
So it's a good, like, and Pixar has been suffering as much as any other Disney product. So the fact that it was devoid of that and made money, and now you're gonna have Deadpool, who will most likely just mock all the political stuff and make money.
Yeah.
For I just know, I can tell you that nothing in their lineup of other projects, they're still going to keep doing what they've been doing. Yeah. And these successful projects are the ones that kind of keep it limping along because
they're going
because they make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
They're just going to dump that into the next 6 projects that are going to tank.
Yeah.
And, Star Wars, look at the Acolyte and all the stuff going on with that. Just, after episode 8, I couldn't watch anything Star Wars related. I didn't watch anything.
Man, I couldn't do. I couldn't do episode.
I got into
7.
discussions with my friends that coming out of episode 8 because I was like, well, 7. I know it's a lot of rehashing of episode 4, but I was like, but I kind of see what they're doing. Like they at least ask some interesting questions. Let's see how they follow up. Yeah. And then on episode 8 was just, oh yeah, all that stuff doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So and Luke's dead. So
yeah, it was just, it went from bad to worse to terrible.
The more I talked about it, the more mad I got, and so I was just like, you know what? I don't even care what happens in episode 9. I'm done. And
I know. I wanted to call episode 7 the Force Recycled. And then they drew out A New Hope and blew the script off to get the dust off of it and just changed the name of the characters around. It was horrible.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
They had such potential, and
they did.
The fact that they just they didn't have a plan, and they just they let the politics get into it all, and so again, how many lessons do they need to know that this stuff isn't going to work? But that should give, I think, the rest of us some hope that regardless of how much they're pushing a lot of this stuff, that the majority of people aren't that way, that they're not thinking that way.
Yeah, they're appealing to what, 1%?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so financially idiotically stupid. Like we bought. Do you remember the last Starfighter?
Oh yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
It was on when we came over yesterday.
Yes, it was because we bought it. So we were going through. We happened to be on Apple Plus that day because I think we had a free trial or whatever, and it wasn't done yet. And we were just kind of, my wife and I were kicking around the other night trying to find something to watch. And they had the last Starfighter on it because it's the 40th anniversary since the release, which I know everybody take a collective sigh because that punches you right in the heart, doesn't it? Heck, we're getting older, boys. There ain't no denying it. And but it was the 40th anniversary, and so they had it on sale. That was like the HD version, so it wasn't like ultra high def, but it was HD, and it was like $5. And my wife's like, "Oh, you got to get it," and I'm like, "Oh no, it'll be all right." And she's like, "No, you got to get it." So I bought it, right, and it was just so fun because like, you turn it on and it's got this fantastic score from Craig Safin that just washes over you. And it's just so, it was one of the first movies that actually they used CGI, and they did a really pretty good job with it. It's not as great as what it would be now, but when you watch it, it actually still holds up pretty well. It's definitely not Cheeseville. It's sure. It was pretty well done. And, I'm just sitting here thinking, and I'm like, if somebody that was a big fan like me, that has the technical ability to do like a sequel, not a reboot, just leave the original alone, don't touch it, no touchy, but come along and do a sequel and bring back some of the original characters, the nostalgia campaign alone for the trailers, you would pack the theater. That thing would make 50 billion times more money than it did originally when it first came out. Just because all the Gen Xers, we would pile into the theaters to watch it.
It's funny because the Transformers, they just hit their 40th anniversary. That's why this figure came out. So, because they just released the 40th anniversary DVD of the movie, or they're getting ready to. I don't know. They just hit 40 years, and so like everybody's going crazy with it. But
they've lost the idea of why we go to the movies and why we read comic books and why we do these other things, and it's escapism. It's to take you away from all the insanity of the world. Nobody wants to sit there and watch Fox News all day, and that's not healthy to sit there and watch this stuff 24 hours a day. And, you know, being just bathed in this insanity of this world, and then you turn around and you go to the theater and you can't get away from it there.
Yeah.
That's why this stuff is failing. If you do that, somebody listening to me, if you listen to the show, please, please, please put some love and care into making a sequel for The Last Starfighter. And I promise you, you can only send me 10%. Just 10% is all I ask. You will make $50,000 billion. That's not even math, but you'll make a lot of money. Because people are looking for that, the good versus evil, the no agenda, the general, just the kind of nostalgic, innocent, fun escapism.
Yeah, it's how well can you relate to these characters? How well, like, what kind of how can you inspire people with the plight of this particular character or that particular? Like the Dark Knight movies were, people always ask which my favorite Batman movies, and I tell them it's the Dark Knight trilogy.
Absolutely.
And, even the Batman,
Didn't watch
it. Wasn't too big into that. It wasn't even necessarily that it was a terrible movie. It just wasn't.
Well,
great.
I did watch that one.
And,
I take it back.
But there is, like, especially for me spiritually, it's funny because watching the Batman Begins, it really, like I said, it sort of galvanized this whole thing into helping out with my team ministry, getting me started. When I got to the Dark Knight, that's sort of when things are, we started the teen conference. I've sort of been in it for a while. I'm able to, I'm writing the book. I'm doing these things. I'm kind of in the thick of it, and which is kind of like what's going on in the Dark Knight movie. And then Dark Knight Rises is, 8 years after, and he's, an older Bruce Wayne. He's got to relearn to get that sort of passion back. And when that movie came out, that sort of hit me too. And I was able to kind of, like, I could do a fantastic trilogy of sermons on hitting, the young people, the middle-aged disciple, and the older disciples, the Christians. I could do it in a heartbeat because there's really strong messages in all three of them. And when I tell people that, it's like there's a lot of, just like I said, a lot of comparisons in my own personal lives. I have a lot of stories that I can kind of connect to these things. Like, that's why those really resonate with me. And it's like, why can't we get other movies like that could do the same thing, even if it's a Last Starfighter? Even if they remade it, what other things could they put into it to make it like really grab you and pull you in and make you be like, oh man, I remember when I was good at video games, I totally could have done that. Come for me.
It's like I just imagine this trailer, like you just kind of, you don't even have to have anything in there, like hardly at all. You just do it all imagery. You just have a camera that slowly pans down the Starlight Starbright trailer park. And then it just kind of slowly pans over and goes to the old video arcade.
You've thought about this a lot.
Oh, I have. If I was a director and I had a buku bunch of money and stuff, we'd be making us a sequel. And you just pan over to the video game and it just kind of flashes and goes, "Greetings, Starfighter," and it cuts off. Dude, I'm getting chills right now.
Speaking of the like kind of nostalgia video game inspirational stuff, have you guys watched the original Tron recently? Or are you guys familiar with the spiritual themes in Tron?
No, I guess I've never really thought about it, but it's funny because that's the other movie those were the two movies that were the big CGI at the time. They were the big trials for CGI. That was the other one.
Tron is huge into Christian themes, like absolutely massive. The original one, it has, because you've got the programs who they look at the users as like gods, so like the main user for the computer comes down into the computer program, and even in the second one they call his son the son of Flynn, like Flynn is their god. And that one's got a few things in it, but for the most part, the first one, it's all about like connecting with God. They have faith that the users are there. They have these temples that they use the information nodes, kind of like prayer, to connect with their user. Like it's if you watch it now, you'll see all the spiritual stuff in it. It is rich with Christian theology in it. It's nuts. But I don't know. So it's one of those things that I tell people all the time. If people who, when I'm talking about movies and stuff,
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Talk about Tron.
It was hard for me when I was a kid to really appreciate Tron because it was kind of really high high level kind of brain thing, and I didn't.
And it was a little slow.
Yeah,
it was a little
It was
slow.
more story driven. Where Last Starfighter's fun, and we're shooting stuff, and it's all for a kid. It's like woohoo, spaceships and laser beams, and we're shooting things, and we're fighting the Kodan Armada, and it's all cool. But I'll have to go back and watch it now through that adult lens, because you see things so differently now. When the music too, like we were talking about this, is like how. Well, who was it we were talking about upstairs? Oh, Bruce Springsteen. Like I hate Bruce Springsteen's politics, but I got to say I like some of the music, right? But as far as the human being, you can keep him.
Yeah,
love his music.
Love his music, But
there's a lot of. Unfortunately, there's a lot of celebrities that were kind of like that. So
oh yeah, for sure. So even through when some of the, because when Iron Man came out and everything, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I wasn't a big comic book guy at all, but I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I like this, and I like, obviously Downey did a great job. But it's one of the things we talked about is you kind of got going through there. You can see the kind of the satanic darkness in some of it too. Did you catch some of the same thing even through the Avengers and through that whole series and Endgame and?
Really through. Yes, I think the first Iron Man was very rich also, because he sort of has kind of a weird say, but he had a kind of a come to Jesus moment after he gets saved from the desert and he comes back. And he has everybody sit down, they're doing a little press conference, and he
eating his cheeseburger.
And he just says I have more to offer this world than just things that blow up. And he's like, and he that speech he gives is very much like this sort of redemptive moment. That's the moment he really changes, and now he has to live with the consequences of those changes. And that's the rest of the movie. And I love the way that whole thing plays out, because he when his mentor, the guy that helped him build the suit, is dying, and he says, you saved my life, and he says, don't waste it. And and that's part of sort of realizing as a Christian what you have to offer, whether it be through your gifts or through your talents, your abilities, just having a vision for things and just not giving up. You can change so much if you just dedicate yourself to it. And that's where I think a lot of people have this, it's funny. A lot of the people I know, they still, my niece and nephews and some of those kids I help, in the team, they still call me Batman, and it's kind of funny. It's but to some degree, I have to be Batman. That is who I am. I have to believe, when it hits the fan, I want to be one of those people that people turn to, they see as someone who's strong in their faith, to be able to, who can take a step back and kind of see things for what's really going on and pointing things out and being okay, everybody's focused on this, but we really need to, I think we need to focus on this. This is going to change all this.
Yeah.
Being able to do that and sort of being that person, that's not just I just wrote a silly book and I'm, whatever, everyone else can do what they want with it. I have to live this too. This is this book is who I am. Yeah. And that's really never going to change. I'm always going to be the Batman, the spiritual Batman. So in my friends' eyes, but that's okay. It's when things get rough, I sort of go into that mode, and when things seem faithless or tough or wrong or off, or things are going on, helping to know that I can make a difference, or I can help this person to see the difference they can make, raising up a Robin, so to speak, teaching them how to think that way too, and being you're not stuck in this position. You can change everything if you believe you can. And that's really, that's kind of having that, that mustard seed of faith, that Jesus didn't just call his guys out to be well, you guys just keep an eye on the world, make sure things don't get too out of whack. It's no, you gotta get involved in there. It's hard. And, but you can make a difference as long as you want to, as long as you choose to be that way. You can always have an impact. It may not be the impact you want. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes God works in different ways than you expect. It's always going to be crazy, but I always tell people, I'm this is the sea of people. And when you choose to rise up and be something more, I was the other thing about it from Satan's level, he's watching everybody on this plane, and you start doing something, and he's he's gonna your challenge is gonna come to meet you. That's wherever you go. Yep. And really, that's kind of all the Marvel movies is like when these heroes become their heroes, the villains rise up to meet the hero where he's at.
Yeah.
Like, so it's never like, or the hero rises to meet where the villain where he's at. It's never like, well, we as a community stopped this, from happening. It's like, no,
Yeah.
the villain rises up, hero needs to rise up. But also, if you rise up, expect something else to rise up too. Like, Satan's going to meet you right where you're at.
That's right.
And so getting people, it's like, but be ready for that. If you're ready for that, like when this comes, like a lot of times in my mind, I'm sure you guys probably do this too. You think about like worst case scenarios, things happen, what happens if this person in my life passes away? What happens if this person, if this person were to ever fall away from, stop, following God, or, something like this really bad happens, like how would I deal with that? And it's like, if you in your head, you already know, like, this is how I would deal with it. If that ever happens, you know how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like you're not caught off guard. And so kind of getting people ready for those types of things, it's part of the lesson in the book too. But I don't know. It's Batman. He's ready for everything, right? He plans for everything. I got to do the same thing.
Hey everyone, we'll get you back to the show in just a minute, but I wanted to show you another way that you can actually help out myself and the show. Head on over to our website, thetfhc.com, and click on Pod U. This is actually going to take you to Podcast University. So if you or anyone you know has wanted to become a podcaster, this is going to be the perfect place for you. We actually have 10 different sessions available for you on here, both on demand, or you can actually book a live 1-hour session with me. Sessions cover things like how to set up your show so you don't become a statistic, equipment, recording, editing, distribution, marketing, guests, monetizing, how to understand your stats, and how to grow your podcast. You can head over to thetfhc.com/pod-u, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Is that far and away your favorite superhero? Is Batman?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
By far.
Ben, what's yours? What's your favorite?
I really like Batman, but I also like Wolverine.
Okay. What about him? You just want some claws to rip things apart sometimes?
Well, yeah, that. And, how he could just flip it on real quick.
Yeah.
And I do that. I do blow up real quick.
Eric, there's two kinds of people in the world. There's the me's where you're always going to know your stand. I'm kind of like Kilauea. I'm always kind of letting off lava here and there. Sometimes I should probably not let so much off. And then there's the people like Ben who are Mount Vesuvius. And they just kind of build it up. But then when they finally go, everybody in Pompeii is going to die.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
that's true. I do hold a lot in, but when I go,
boom. Yeah,
maybe that's.
It sounds like you need a Hulk class.
That's right. Yeah, you need to get your green on a little more before you go full Hulk, full Ferrigno.
Yeah,
you got to rein it in.
Yeah, that's.
I just dated all three of us again too with that reference, by the way. So there's a good video of him here recently where he actually got implants and stuff where he could hear for the first time.
Oh wow!
You ever seen those videos where people get that? It's pretty touching actually. It's that pure innocence of like the things we take for granted, and you get to see it in somebody else's face and their heart and their soul when or
you see people who get the glasses where they can see certain colors for the first time and that's a color. What is that? Those always blow me away.
It's awesome. Isn't it?
On the flip side, did you guys ever see the comedy version of the guy who could hear for the first time?
Oh no, I haven't seen this.
There's a deaf guy who they get it so he can hear, and his wife starts talking to him, and he's like, oh, what's that noise? And he's like, oh, it's your wife. You'll learn to live with it. And he's like, oh, I don't want it. Take it away. I don't want it anymore. It's so funny. I was cracking up laughing.
Yeah. You had a thought a second ago, and I don't know. You looked at me. I don't know if you wanted to.
I don't want to get.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to call you out there. So sorry about that.
It was just from earlier today.
Oh yeah, we had fun earlier today. But that's okay. So there's a few things in there that I kind of want to dive back into, and I guess and you're better at this than I am because you've made a lot more connections with the whole Avengers thing. But one of the things we always talking about is it seems like to us, all of the indoctrination and all the things we talk about, right? There's a greater scheme at play, and ultimately it's spiritual warfare. But on the on the humanistic level, right, outside of the spiritual realm, in our world that we live in, it's all to reduce the populace a lot of times to this like utopian level where they think they want to create this false utopia, like a Garden of Eden, but it's like some twisted, mangled version of it, you know, that is completely 180 from God. And that's one of the things that you drew on with the Thanos snap, right? You snap your fingers and boom, you reduce it to this nice level where there's now a lovely symbiotic balance in the universe, right?
Balance, yeah.
Yeah.
As all things should be.
Yeah, right. Have you like similar things like I guess we've kind of talked about it, but just to kind of give an example of that on the darker side of the coin? As we've gotten more, like, I guess it would be kind of the transition point, like, right, when we were kids, we see like maybe the purity aspect of it and more of the direct godly connection. And then as we've moved forward, it's just kind of morphed into this thing now.
It's, yeah, there's always going to be like some comic books that, you know, sort of have a darker element that where things aren't necessarily resolved in a positive way, or there's nothing real, nothing to extrapolate that's, you know, inherently spiritual or good. You know, another movie series, you know how like when they release certain movies that are very similar in tone, but they, you know, like Armageddon and Deep Impact kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
When
like
the
Deep
movie,
Impact better.
When the Book of Eli came out, I don't know if you guys saw that. Great movie, Denzel Washington. Do you remember what other movie is similar that came out at the exact same time?
Why do I want to say it was Children of Men? No.
It maybe, but that's not the one I was thinking of. The other one was The Road with Viggo Mortensen.
I know what you're talking about, but I did not see it.
That movie has a lot of the same elements, sort of post-apocalyptic type thing. The only problem is in The Road there is no positive. There is no happy ending. There is no light to look forward to. It is in essence
pure darkness.
I would say a godless movie. It really is. It's just there is no God. The world's been turned into hell. Welcome to your new reality. Where the Book of Eli, you've got these elements going on, but there's the Bible and the faith and seeing by faith and not by sight, and there's all these things you could pull out of that movie, but very similar but very different. And I think we're always going to sort of have that. I think the one thing that a lot of modern day creators take for granted, and they sort of have, the reason why they keep attacking the fans is we've seen, like us old comic book fans, we've seen heroes. We know what these characters are. We know what heroes look like. Yeah. We know what these heroes look like. We know how they act. We know how they are. Those are things that we can imitate. We know how Superman's going to react to something. We know how. So when you rewrite the character into something that it's not, that's why the fans are like, this isn't that character. And so this is how this character would not react this way. This character would not be doing this. But to them, in their mind, they're like, well, this is the way that it should be, but it's not. That's not the way that it is. And we know a hero when we see it. We know these things. And I think a lot of us who are maybe in midlife range, who have these things, like, we sort of need to emulate those qualities for our kids so that they can also see what a real hero is. They can see what a real person who stands up for God looks like. They know what it looks like when, someone's sharing their faith. They know. So when they see the opposite of those things, or us getting attacked, Christianity getting attacked, that your kids will see that and recognize it for what it is, because we recognize it for what it is. It's just how good are we at teaching our kids to do those things, to be able to notice the evil, to be able to turn away from it, to be able to combat it, to be able to fight against it, to be able to stand against, just teach others to do the same thing. Being that example, even when it, kind of quote the Kingdom of Heaven movie, it's like, I don't forget where I was even going with that. It's like he had to sort of be different and than what the world was going on around him. Right. You have to sort of be that change, that difference, and even tell the truth even if it costs you everything. Mm-hmm. Can you live that kind of lifestyle? And that's like, we have to be more willing to do those things. And if we really want to save the next generation, we have to be good examples of those things.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, that's true.
Amen.
Because they're up against darkness like we've never seen.
No, it's just getting worse and worse.
Different.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say, well, it's, everything looks different. It's the same fight. It's just different from generation to generation. It's like, yeah, but it's coming in real hot now. Like this is, I want to believe that like, oh, every generation just has its own challenges, but this seems so much darker and so much, helping out our teen ministry is getting them ready to go into college if that's where they want to go. Honestly, I don't recommend it, but if they end up going to college, like if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, maybe consider going to a trade school where you don't necessarily going to face this indoctrination stuff, because it's just so important to them to change your child that your kid goes away doing well as a teenager and comes back and now they're a different gender and they hate you and everything you stood for. And, how did that happen in a year, 2 years? It's so intensive. So getting the kids, if they are going to go that route, getting them ready to be like in advance, being like, hey, this is what you're going to face. This is what they're going to tell you. Like, look at how their life has turned, this person's life has turned out because they believe that. You want to be like that? You want, I used to always tell kids, like, nobody's above, well, one, nobody's ever above a butt whipping, but the other thing is nobody's ever above a field trip. Like, let's go. I'll show, we can go down to Hawville. I can drive around and show you what this type of lifestyle looks like. I can show you, I can go to this part of town over here. I can introduce you to one of my best friends who's given, over into drugs and things like that. You want to see how their life turned out? Right. Go ahead. Let's go say hi. You tell me what you see from that interaction. Which one's better? Yeah, exactly. Like there's a reason why we're teaching these things. It's not just about, well, these are the rules. You got to follow them. If you don't, you're going to get in trouble. Like, no, these have real world consequences. Like these decisions, the choices you make now can have a lasting impact forever.
Yeah. There's a reason Christ gave the parable of the prodigal son. It's happening all around us every day. It's living, breathing, not just words on a paper in an old book. It's living alive right now, unfortunately, all around us all the time.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
I love that parable. That the prodigal son is just absolutely amazing. It's one of those ones that if you really dig into it, like it's almost like how do you not get teary-eyed?
Yeah, man. Just especially as a parent.
Like the heart of God and just, returning, throwing his arms around his son, even though he felt like he doesn't deserve it. Yeah. And that's because which one of us does deserve it?
Yeah, right.
Like none of us deserve
Ultimately, none of us do, but thankfully he has more grace than we often offer to others. But you had said something earlier, too, that I kind of wanted to go back to, which was you had mentioned raising up a Robin. I like that because I think that's where we go wrong. We tend to, at least to me, and I wanted to get your take on this, a lot of times we'll do a good job on the front end of we'll take these kids to a camp and we'll do this, razzle-dazzle show and we'll get them to, in the moment, turn their heart over to Christ. And then a lot of times after that, it's just like, well, have fun. Here's your Bible and, off you go. Do you see the same kind of thing? I mean, like you were in that world. So just the mentorship, right? The mentorship aspect of it is just so lacking in the church.
Mentoring. Like if you are even remotely interested in how these kids are turning out, you have to mentor. But part of mentoring, it means you got to set the example for a lot of stuff. And hopefully that, if you're not up on your game as far as getting your Bible, praying, getting advice, doing, walking the walk, it'll kick your butt into gear because you want to be that example for that kid. And some of us need to do that. And I'm not saying everybody can mentor. It's not necessarily like that, but it's funny because look, with a lot of the kids that I personally mentor, a lot of it tends to be, their parents are trying to help them find a mentor and they ask, well, who do you want to mentor you? And they're like, oh, Eric, he's awesome. Okay. So I've ended up mentoring a lot of kids that I wouldn't even have known would be interested. And part of it because like, they come over to my house or something like that. They see the collection of stuff. They know that I'm into a lot of these particular types of things, whether it's superheroes or video games or movies and things like that. And, I've been able to relate because a lot of the kids are just like, oh, I want to be a Christian like Eric, and okay, that's fine. So let's go over what I know to help you be a Christian like the way that I see things. Like it may click, it may not. But some kids, it's just, can you just get with a kid every other week, go to Starbucks, and just talk about what's going on with their lives? Can you talk to them, like help them through they're struggling? Because a lot of them, share things about like, oh man, I had one of my best friends just came out as gay. How, what do I do with that? How do I help with, this kid in my class is, all of a sudden now he's a she. Like what do we do with those things? Like I've been watching, these shows, and I just, it makes me uncomfortable when they've added this and this and that, like a lot of the political agenda stuff, and like, talk to them and be like, okay, well, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you think you should deal with that? Like, but then being able to go into the Bible and show them like, it's really not any different. Like, this is what the Bible says. This is what you're dealing with. Like, I know it's been over 2,000 years since this stuff got written, but it's still a lot of the same stuff humanity is dealing with. It's only different in location, not necessarily in practice. So people that struggle with sexual morality or impurity, not like people didn't struggle with that back in the New and Old Testament days. It's helping them understand, like I said, that not a lot of these things that they've been taught aren't just rules. They're things that we live by because we see the fruit and the benefit of it, but we have to be able to, can you show them the benefit of it? Like, can you help them to like understand that when they come across this challenge, or they meet these people who have these other belief systems, like how do you reconcile these things? But sometimes a lot of kids just have questions too, like why does the Bible teach this? Why does it teach that? Why aren't we allowed to do this? Or why would God not want us to have this? Or why does God look down on things like homosexuality? Why does he what is the whole thing about like idols? What is the whole thing about maybe some of the emotions that they're going through? If you see a kid who's really struggling with some particular emotions, it's helping them to get through those things just by talking about it. And not that you can fix everything. I mean, sometimes you got to get parents involved. Sometimes, I've seen kids who have had to go through, go and meet psychiatrists, to help get through a lot of, really painful issues. But just being their friend, listening to them, giving advice, not judging them, like. Some of my best friends who've helped give me guidance in life, like I could be like, man, I just murdered a guy today, and they'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a bad day. You want to talk?
Yeah.
they don't like freak out immediately. They in their head they may be screaming, but vocally and stuff they're able to keep that reassurance that I can tell them anything, and they're not going to judge me for it. They're not going to hate me for it. I honestly look forward to what they have to say, and just can you be that for a kid? And so many kids are just absolutely hungry for something like that. And a lot of kids, like I said, if they get to pick their mentors, if you ask your kid, if you had a spiritual mentor, who would you want it to be? Like, they may pick someone you're not even thinking of. Yep. They may be someone way over here. And you're like, what? You admire that guy? Why? Yeah. They'll tell you. And then that person starts mentoring your kid. All of a sudden, now you've got, it helps that the mentor do better spiritually. It helps your kid do better spiritually. Starts to, show more respect, because you guys know that, if you were struggling with something, the last person you would tell would be your parents. Like you could hate your parents' guts, but if their best friend came over and asked you the exact same question or challenged you on the exact same point your parents did, you'd be like, oh wow, that's really interesting.
Exactly,
oh man,
right.
that's so that
you beat me.
Oh
to
man,
it.
he's and because I was watching a video on that the other day. We were talking about, like, I've been trying to tell my kid that he shouldn't be doing this forever. Me saying it's nails on the chalkboard, but when he says it, when his best friend's dad says it, he's just like zoned in on it. And it's sort of, can you be that type of person for these kids? And but also like helping give them a little bit of vision in their lives, help them see where they can make a difference. Like challenge them, get them, have them go through it's funny because they actually have different comic book character books in Christianity. Like there's one called, I think, Comic Book Character. There's Christianity According to the World's Greatest Superhero, something like that. It's about Superman, and there's different things. There's different books. There's Christian Wisdom of the Jedi Masters was one of the ones I used to really love. There's different things you can get involved with the kids and just go through. Okay, every week we'll go through a different chapter and just help them, get these character principles down, so that way they start to see these things in life. And like I said, just giving you a little bit of vision. Like, man, you could go into this team, like this campus ministry. You could lead Bible studies. You could lead group chats. You could, do these things and inspire the other kids to do this. And they will take it and run with it. They will absolutely run with it. Yeah. some of the kids that I've helped, some of them are off leading churches now. Some of them are leading campus ministries, teen ministries.
That's got to be awesome, for you, man. You had a hand in that. That's an incredibly rewarding feeling.
It's funny because the kids will oftentimes, I'll see them.
Yeah.
Like one, for example, is leading a church out in Texas. There's my Batgirl. I don't see her as often, but oftentimes when I see her, she will comment that like the things that I helped her with and to challenge her on, like, have stuck with her all these years. She credits me as being one of those spiritual heroes for her. And,
yeah.
It's humbling every time I hear it. But for me, it's just like just giving her a vision and just challenging her on, hey, helping her pick out talk to her about which college she should go to, and how she should, how she could impact the girls in our teen ministry at the time. Like, those things have just stuck with her. But it's just giving her things to do and giving her the things, like showing her how she can be this hero in her own life. And other kids, the exact same thing. I remember I told one kid he didn't think he could be. He didn't want to become a Christian because he was like, well, if I become a Christian, I have to be like the other kids in the teen ministry. And I was like, no. I was like, God needs you to help make Christians like you. How can you help kids like you become Christians? And he's like, yeah, I probably could. So we started studying the Bible and getting into it. And to this day, he credits me with that one quote is like, don't try to be like them. God's already, if they're Christians, God's already got Christians like them. How about you be a Christian like you? And so when he went into all the different ministries, he just started helping out the kids that were like him, the ones that felt, removed, and kind of the side kids, the ones that don't, I would say, like the group rejects, kind of thing, like the skater kids, versus like all the kids who were on football and things like that. Like, he was just a skater kid who was into video games, and I'm like, yeah, God needs to save those people too. So go help them, and, now he's married and has a couple of kids, and
that's awesome.
It's just, it is cool to see the impact you can have,
man, for sure.
But it's just weird. It's just, it all came from me watching a kid sleep in the middle of a midweek class.
Isn't that awesome?
About it.
How God works, man. When you turn your heart towards Him, it's kind of awesome how He uses things. But yeah,
I love it. I love just having the vision again. Just ask yourself what can be, like what could things be if somebody had enough faith to believe things could be different.
Amen.
And to make those changes.
Yeah, you said a couple different things in there that are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
First of all, if anybody's listening to us and they're a parent of a preteen or a teen, this too shall pass. We promise.
Yeah.
That is a rough time, because kids really go through what I've identified now that all of my kids are pretty much gone and out of the house. We have one left. He's 18, but all the other kids are pretty much grown and gone. The kids go through 3 phases, and all of us did this, right? It's just a matter of how long it takes everybody to get through the phases. The first phase happens when you're a little kid, and it's my dad can beat up your dad. My dad's the superhero, and he can do anything, right? And then they become those preteens and teenagers, and then all of a sudden, instead of being the superhero, you're the stupidest person alive, and you don't know what it was like to be them.
Yeah.
And things are completely different now, and all this and
how
that.
How dare you breathe the air I breathe?
That's right.
Yeah, I know.
How could you? Yeah. How did you bring me into this cursed world? Shame on you for everything you've ever done, ever. And then you go into phase 3, and you kind of move on, and you become an adult, and you get on your own, and life starts to tear your butt, apart. And then you realize mom and dad aren't so stupid after all, and they might know a couple things. So then they kind of slide back into the mentor role again if it all plays the way it's supposed to. So it's just phase 2 is tough.
Yeah.
Really tough. So if anybody's going through that, don't feel like you're alone. You're not, please. And you're a parent out there and you're listening to this, because this is a really good discussion. And the other thing too that you said, man, I was thinking it and you beat me to it. You can say the exact same thing because they're in phase 2 and they think you're an idiot. You can say one thing, and Ben, like my kid could listen to Ben and he could say the same thing, and they'd be like, oh, that's really smart. And I'm over here wanting to pull my hair out of my head because I'm like, I've been saying this for 5 years. And Ben said it once and you listen to him. So it's okay. Don't feel like you've failed. Go ahead and have someone else mentor your son or daughter. That's not you. I would highly recommend that because of exactly what you said.
My kids, hey, did you know Kyle said that? Really?
That's probably happened, I would think.
Yes, it has.
Has
Like,
really?
What do you mean? I just told you that 3 days ago.
That's awesome. Hey, you're welcome.
Have you guys ever noticed too that like a lot of kids who who really hate their parents are still the ones who don't want to move out.
Yeah.
Like when they get to be 18.
They only
like,
hate certain parts of their parents, apparently. Yeah, it's like I've always told the kids, like I won't have the 30-year-old living in. I'm not going to take you to court. I always used to think like I will make you homeless, but no, the real thing is like no, you'll make you homeless because if you actually push me to that, don't try me. You'll find out. But there's that, and then the other thing too that you touched upon that is really good, and I do leadership coaching as another gig to not attached to this. So that's another gig in my life. And one of the first things from a leadership aspect, and this is so critical as a parent more than anything, right? Because it starts there, is your mouth and your feet need to match 100% of the time. If they even sense that your power animal is the hypocrite, the hippo, they are never going to listen to anything you ever say. So if you're riding your kid to make their bed every day, you need to make your bed every day. Yeah, it doesn't matter how small it is or how big, because if you can't do the small, they will sense it and they're looking for it, right? Because they're already trying to make sure that you actually fit into the designation of you're the idiot camp, right? The number 2 box. Don't do that, and that's leadership 101. You can't influence a single person if you're saying one thing and doing something else. So that's fantastic. So I guess one of the last questions I have for you is, why do you think, first of all, I think mathematically and statistically per sales and everything else, Batman is actually the most popular superhero. Is that actually correct?
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
By far. Well, it's funny if you ask people like why they like Batman. A lot of people say because he doesn't have superpowers and he's just like everybody else. And I think that is to a degree correct. I think, I don't know if I've ever come up with a concrete answer as to why that is. I think part of it is just because it's sort of the dark. He's dark, but not like too dark of a character. He still has. I think part of it is he maintains his humanity. I mean, you see like a lot of like dark movies. I mean, you think like I don't know, like when we grew up, like The Crow and Blade, and I don't just even I'm not gonna say Blade, but I would say like a lot of these darker hero movies that kind of came out. Like there's the character doesn't have a lot of humanity or a lot of hope. I think Batman sort of inspires a little bit of that hope because we all know what it's like to lose something. Bruce loses his parents, but one of the things I try to really hit home in the book is that you don't. In essence, we all could be Batman, but it's not for the reasons you think. It's not because like, oh, well, he's human, we're human, and oh, he's could be rich, and if we had that kind of money, we could be Batman, or same gadgets. Like, it doesn't come down to that. It honestly comes down to the perseverance, because there was one particular cartoon in the Justice League I don't know if it was Justice League Unlimited. It might have just been the Justice League cartoon that came out with Bruce Timm. He was fighting against some guy called John D, the Doctor.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that.
Doctor. I would say Despair. That's not it. It's something like that. He ends up going against this character who can sort of manipulate his mind, but he comes at Bruce and he's at Batman and says like, "Oh, you're just like me. We don't have any powers. Like you're not like," because he has like a grudge against super powered people, and he kind of comes at Batman sort of as sympathetically as like, "Oh, you're like me. You don't have any powers. We can, but Batman even says he's like, "No, I do have one power." He says, "I never give up." And that's ultimately, I talk about in the book, that's one thing that his villains, like Batman's villains, know he won't kill them. Yeah. Like they know, and even if they put themselves in a situation where they might die, he'll probably save them. Like, so why are they afraid of him? And it's because as soon as they know he's onto them, he will never give up. That he will not stop until he catches them, and there is nothing they can do about it. And that's the kind of the point of being where we can sort of be Batman is, again, it's not necessarily the wealth. I got all these fun toys, but I wouldn't call myself wealthy. Doing all my job hopping now, I definitely wouldn't call myself wealthy, but
there's only one way to find out, Eric. We're going to round them all up and we're going to take them and sell them, and we'll find out.
Yeah, I'll find out. But just having the mindset that you're just not going to give up, like, no matter what, when things get tough, when things get hard, when things get, even when other people are giving up around you, not giving up, like that's the essence of Batman. Yeah. And I think that's probably, even if subconsciously, I think that's what resonates with people, because a lot of people don't want to give up on things going on in their life. They don't want to give up on their friends, their family, their jobs, their faith, their anything that they're involved in. A lot of people don't like to lose. They don't think they're the bad guys, and they don't want to give up. And Batman just plays to that point. He never gives up. And I mean, I know given most of the movies, you could kind of say that about most other characters, but Bruce Wayne, I think, like to really be a Batman type character in your own life, you have to adopt that mentality. And what's weird is that when you do that, you'll actually see that people will notice that you're doing these things. And it's kind of weird because it's kind of like, well, you guys could do this too.
Yeah.
Just don't be hopeless. Don't be hopeless about things. And it's weird that the difference you can have and the way you can impact people just by having that mentality is pretty interesting. So
yeah, no, that's good. I think the easy answer is to go, well, he doesn't have any power, so he's just like you and I. And I think that is part of it, but there's something that you touched upon that I guess I was sitting here reflecting on as you were talking, and I'm like, that's actually pretty good. I'd never really thought about that before. But I think it is the fact that he has a darkness in him. Right. And we're all very aware of the darkness in ourselves. Satan makes sure that we're very, very aware what our dark areas are. Right. There's no doubt that everybody knows, right, what their dark area is. But no matter the darkness in him, there's still the goodness far outweighs the darkness, and the good aspects. And I think that resonates with people, whereas Superman, there ain't really no dark there. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like he's just kind of the hero. And I don't know. I think that's the everyman thing, the no powers, and then he's already kind of up against it from that perspective, and then that aspect of it I think is pretty fascinating. So that's pretty heady. I never thought about that.
I think Batman 2 he goes with the mentality of like things are going to be different because what other outcome is there? Like him not doing it, even if Batman went out and got shot on his first night out and died, he wouldn't consider that a failure because at least he tried.
Yeah.
And he went out with a mentality to do something to make things different. And if that's how he goes down, that's how he goes down. And in some of the comic books, that is how he goes down.
Yeah.
So for sure. There's comics where everybody dies and comes back all the time. But at the same time, like that's can you be okay with that? If this is, when things go south, are you okay with that? And can you be ready for that? And that's kind of the I had a week in my when COVID first hit. I had the worst week of my life. I had in a 1 week span, I lost my job. My foster son, the kid we're about to adopt, he was going back to his parents' house from our foster, and we were trying to adopt him, and it just wasn't going to happen. So he ended up going back to his parents. And 2 days later, like my dog that we had for 16 years, who was like my best friend, died.
Oh man!
And it was like 1 week.
Yeah.
And I was like, and before a couple months before that, my father had passed away too.
Oh,
and so I was like,
yeah, you just been taking it.
Yeah. And I had a friend of mine who used to be one of my roommates. He was with me when my dog passed away, which was the last thing that happened. And he broke down crying in front of me. And he's like, how can you handle all this stuff going on? And I'm just like, I was like, some of it's, like my foster son didn't just go back to his parents. Like we kind of knew that was coming. I just didn't know. But because of the COVID, it got pushed up because they didn't know how schooling was going to go. So, or transportation, how were they going to transport kids to go visit their parents? They're like, well, we'll just put him back with his mom now. So you don't have to worry about it. So we ended up losing him a lot sooner. My dog, she was 16, but again, her health went down really fast. And the job thing, I had no idea was going to happen. That just kind of came out of nowhere. But ultimately, like coming down to faith, like knowing that, like it kind of you're saying, like this too shall pass. You sort of go in like, okay, none of these things aren't independently are the end of the world, and definitely cumulative. It can be very overwhelming, just stress wise and emotionally. I definitely was feeling it, but I knew just being faithful and being open with how I'm doing. I talking to my wife, talking to my brother, talking to my friends, my spiritual brothers and sisters in Christ. I could get through a lot of that stuff as long as I remembered, the promises of God and just that Jesus, the example that Christ set, and just try to follow those examples. Like yeah, it never promises that things are going to be easy. And so when things get hard, just know that you can get through it as long as you just don't give up. Just keep fighting for it. Don't stop. And really, that's kind of what it came down to. Is like, yes, I had to go get a new job, but what it did for me great was I was able to get back in the workforce and actually go out and talk to people again. Because until then, I'd worked from home for 12 years, so I didn't, I could feel myself sort of getting more cynical towards people.
Yeah.
So it kind of put me out there, and I had to start relating to people and talking to people and getting to know them again and starting to really reach out to them and like realizing that, just acting like Jesus, the impact that could have on a workplace, and the people's lives around me. So doing that type of stuff. My son we ended up getting a decent relationship with his mother, which is kind of why we were able to get into the point where we're able to almost adopt him now, because his mom knows that she can trust us with him, so we're able to move forward with that. And so we did end up getting another dog several months later, but he was one of the best dogs I've ever had. So like there were a lot of, like, my life sort of came back in ways I didn't really expect it, but I feel like God, a lot of it, God was trying to show me that, like, some of these principles, the things that you wrote out in the book, like, you've kind of forgotten a little bit as far as like going out and reaching out to people and setting a good example in front of people and starting to love people again. And so kind of the hard way, I sort of had to learn that lesson, but at the same time, none of those, like, I sort of got all that back and more because I was able to just go into it with faith. Because any of those times that things happen, especially like my father passing and then losing my job, like I could have just stayed on unemployment and just stop fostering, just cut off the contact with, our son. And, there's a lot of stuff I could have done. And, but just by not giving up and just believing that God had a bigger plan through all of it, I was able to be where I am today, where a lot of those dreams and promises really are being fulfilled every day.
Hey everyone, we'll get you back to the show in just a minute, but I wanted to share with you a great way that you can keep in the know on all things foil. Head on over to our website, thetfhc.com, and just wait for this green pop-up to appear. Fill out all that information in there and then click Keep Me Notified. What this is going to do is this is going to add you to our weekly newsletter. We're going to keep you updated on everything we have going on with the show, but you're also going to get some amazing perks in doing this. This is going to enable you to get access to our private fans Facebook group page, and also you're going to get an email for 20% off your first order in the merch store. So head over to the website, thetfhc.com, and fill this out today, and we're going to keep you updated on everything foil. And now, back to the show. Yeah. Amen, brother. Amen.
I got a question.
Great message.
Can you explain your ring you're wearing on your chain?
Oh, this. So I actually do mention this in the book too. So the ring was something that was started by our friends in high school. Again, my friends in high school were sort of the losers club. Like I sort of went around to all the different groups of people, groups in high school, and found kind of the losers in each group and sort of made that my official group. But anyway, one of the things that we tried to do is we tried to fashion ourselves sort of mentally, kind of like the Knights of the Round Table. Mm-hmm. So what we did, we tried to be honorable in everything we did. So a friend of mine had created these where you have the big ring, and that sort of represents your life, and each little ring was like an honorable deed that you had done. So if you did something honorable, someone who had a ring could give you another ring to put onto.
Oh, very cool.
Once I became a Christian, I sort of looked at it a little differently. I was kind of like, well, what does God consider honorable? Mm. And I figure the biggest thing is living your life and helping other people become Christians. So I have one ring that has one ring for each person I personally helped become a Christian. That I know I had a significant help in. I have 3 of these rings now. This one in particular is actually, so each of my friends that I still hang out with that has an honor ring, one ring for each one of us. That's what this one particularly represents.
Wow.
But I have another one that I wear where it's actually a black, or no, it's got red rings and gold rings. The red rings represent the kids that I've mentored in the past who have gone on to stay strong in Christ as they've gone forward in their lives. And then the gold ones are the kids I'm currently working with. So a lot of those tend to be like my nieces and nephews, my son, and my son's old foster brother. I'm actually mentoring him as well. And so the gold ones represent them. And so the idea is that once they become Christians and they go on, I will take the gold ring off, replace it with a red ring, and then give them the gold ring with a necklace that they can begin their own journeys if they want to and add to their rings. So it can, the rings now kind of represent what you want it to mean, but those are my 3 rings and the 3 things that they
I still have the one you gave me.
I was going to say, did you, I was going to ask if you knew that, and obviously you did.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I would have never
it's
thought.
hanging up. It's like I haven't worn it in a long time, but it's still hanging up.
Oh man,
it's funny because a lot of the kids that I mentor, like I said, once they become Christians, they're like, "Oh, can I get a ring too?" And so
yeah, that's cool.
I'll give them the necklace with the ring, so they will swear it. A lot of them don't necessarily always wear it, but when they do, I notice it. Like, "Hey, nice necklace,"
Yeah.
But I wear some variation of this almost every day.
Yeah,
so and I get a lot of compliments on it. But another thing that's cool about it is people ask me about it, and I get to share my faith
that's
with
amazing.
them. I'm like, "Hey, I helped someone become a Christian." Like, "Oh, what's that like?" Or these are the kids that I mentor, and start talking about the kids that I'm super proud of anyway. I get to share about them. So
how cool
it reminds me of what I do almost every day.
Yeah, man. That's super cool. Thanks for asking that, Ben. I would have never. Yeah, that was good.
That's why I'm around.
I know. Hey, yes.
Ask the weird questions every now and then.
That's
why I stay in the corner. I'm like the ninja.
You are the ninja. You're Benfoot. We've already established this. You're Benfoot the Magnificent. Like give a little Lord of the Rings vibe with it because you got a ring. I feel left out of the ring.
I'm on my way to Mordor.
That's
right. Okay, that's my favorite explanation or whatever for good versus evil.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
that's like my favorite.
It's Tolkien.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, brother, thanks so much, man. This has been awesome. It's kind of a fun thing that we haven't really spent much time diving into. Yeah. That is so important, man. Because it's not just the kids that are up against it these days. The parents are so up against it these days, and it's tough because I think the kids developmentally are far behind than we were too. And there's probably some hope maybe that's going to be found. Hopefully, in this, Lord will use it for whatever it's who it's designed to go to, and for parents that are struggling, and it can be really terrifying. It can be really scary because you just feel like, is my kid going to be okay? And that is a terrifying feeling when you go to sleep at night, not knowing that. And then, we have a lot of divorce these days too. So these poor parents are going to sleep and they don't have anybody to rely on. And that's just, you feel isolated and alone and you're scared. And so just thank you so much for what you're doing and what you have done in your heart and your book. And for anybody listening, please go check his book out. It's Christianity in the Dark Night by Eric Gaizat. Is there any other place that you'd like to send folks to for more information?
Well, the book, if you want to buy it, there's a website called lulu.com, LULU.com, and that's where they can go to buy it. It's on Amazon. I don't know how Amazon fulfills those orders, so I would say my biggest fear is you're going to order it from there, then I'm going to get an email be like, hey, don't forget to send this book. Oh, I don't have it, because I've only got a couple of copies. But if you want to, I know lulu.com actually prints it out, gives it to you. You get it pretty quick. So I would recommend people go there. As far as like things that I work on, it doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with particular Christianity, but I do, the 317games.com and 317films.com. We do have a documentary we did on collectors and collecting.
That's awesome, by the way.
We'll work. I'm sure we'll work. And it's for free. You can actually watch it on the website there. And we also did, we'd like to work on another actual spiritual documentary on, like ghosts and ghost hunting and what that looked like in the early church, like what they believe about those things.
Ooh, maybe so.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's
future projects.
It's pretty cool. We just studying out, even reading like early church history and like early church fathers and what they wrote about things like ghosts and what they believed it was is like way different than what most people would think. And it's I thought it was interesting enough that we could probably write a documentary and work that in and just blow people's minds because it's pretty crazy.
It sounds like we've got episode 2 with Eric planned for the future. Yeah. So we didn't even get into that today.
No, we didn't.
So that's pretty awesome. All right, are you ready for
a whole different topic?
That's right. Are you ready for your most important question of the day? And by that, I'm totally kidding because this is not important at all. I have been staring at this over your left shoulder the entire time. and you played City of Heroes and City of Villains.
I did.
Yes.
I still play it. I don't know if you know that they have a server out now. Like, there's a group called Homecoming. If you look up City of Heroes Homecoming, they actually got NCSoft to give them their blessing to run a server. They have 5 different servers in that one game server, kind of like the old City of Heroes used to have. But they actually got NCSoft's blessing to revitalize City of Heroes, and they come with updates, new powers, get out of here, new missions, everything. Still to this day. It just went live like 2 years ago, but and you don't have to pay for anything. It's all free. So most of the stuff is unlocked. Because that's part of the thing is for them to run it, they can't make money off of it. So the only thing is they take donations to keep the servers going, and other than that, people play, and there's a lot of people still play. It's actually pretty fun.
We're gonna talk more when we stop recording. I need to know more about this.
No, it's a lot of fun. I spend a lot of time on it. My son actually tells me that that's all I do is play City of Heroes. I'm like, that is not true.
Not true.
But,
it's not true. We promise we won't leak any more nerd on anyone. We'll geek out here after we hit the stop button. So totally good. But hey, brother, thanks so much, man. It was great to talk to you and get to know you, and I just appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, bro. All right, well, with that, we will bid you adieu until the next time on The Forum. Take care.
Bye.
Atomic.